Hi everyone, welcome to week 4 of your technical math course. We're actually going backwards this week. We're going to go back and pick up chapter 2 and cover integers and algebraic expressions. So these are the different topics that we're going to be covering. We're going to be looking at integers, absolute value and opposite, how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide integers, and then the order of operations. Along with algebraic expressions. So the first thing that we need to do is to define integers. We talk about the positive numbers being the numbers to the right of 0 on the number line. And so when we add in the negatives, so they're opposites, that's what group is called the integers. So everything to the left, everything to the right, and 0 all together are the integers. So we're not talking about any fractional parts here. We're just talking about our regular counting numbers and their opposites. That's the group that we call the integers. These are just some examples of how to write integers. When we talk about something that is negative in like below 0, that's when we are going to use that negative symbol. So here's another one. This one is below sea level. So again, they're using that negative symbol to show that. Here we have someone who is 14 pounds more than something. So that's a positive value. So it's just a matter of determining what does that value represent. Does it represent a positive amount or a negative amount? And then that will determine whether or not we use a positive or a negative. Anytime we are, looking at order, we always are going to be looking at where does it fall on the number line. So anything that's to the left of something on the number line is smaller than that other thing. Anything to the right of something is considered larger than. So those are just some other key topics to keep in mind when we're talking about integers. They work exactly the same as the whole numbers. So anything to the left is less, anything to the right is greater than. This is just an example of how to determine order. So if you're actually visualizing that number line, that will help you with the less than and greater than symbols. Absolute value is the next topic that's talked about in this chapter, and absolute value is the distance that the number is away from 0. So it's always going to be a positive value. So if we're talking about the absolute value of 6, it's 6. If we're talking about the absolute value of -6, it's also 6. So it's just the distance from that number to 0 on the number line. So keep that in mind as you're working with absolute value. Then the next section is going to be looking at the number line in order to add integers. So this is just showing you how you can, when you're adding a positive, we're going to move to the right on the number line. So they're just trying to give you a visual of this particular topic. And then they're showing you that you can do the same thing if you're taking a negative and adding a positive to it. So again, we just start at that negative position and move 3 to the right. Same that we did with this one, moving 3 to the right, but we just have a different starting point. Then we have the topic about adding numbers with the same sign. So we're just kind of looking at some generalistic rules. So anytime we have numbers with the same sign, you're just going to add their value, so just their number parts, and we're going to keep that sign. Anytime we're going to add numbers with opposite signs, we're going to subtract the numbers and take the sign of the one with the largest absolute value. So here's an example of that, because that one's typically a little bit more difficult to understand. Here we have two numbers. We have a 2 plus a -7. So we're adding those, and they have different signs. So the difference between 7 and 2 is 5. And since the -7 has the largest absolute value, our sign is going to be negative. So it's going to be a -5. So the next topic that you're going to be covering in this chapter is subtraction. And subtraction is really just the opposite of addition. And this is just an example. I skipped this topic. Sorry about that. Adding opposites. So when you have two numbers that are the same, but they're opposite in signs, your addition is always going to end up being 0. Now, moving on to subtraction. These are just some examples. I do want to pop in here to subtraction here real quick. Let's see. We've got a lot of different examples in here for you. Okay, so subtracting sign numbers is really very important. What I want you to remember is anytime we're subtracting, what we want to do is we're going to leave the first number the same. We're going to change the subtraction to addition. And we're going to change the sign of the second number. So here's an example. 15 minus 20. The 15 stays the same. Subtraction becomes addition. And the 20 becomes a negative 20. Now we have an addition problem, and we can do it just like we did with the previous problems. So as you're going through this particular week, if you have any problems with any of the applications or the rules for multiplication and division, or even applying the order of operations to integers, please make sure you reach out to me and let me know. My number is 618-792-2293. You can call or text, or you can also email me. Thanks, and have a great week.